got Stephen Rogelberg with us, Dr. Rogelberg. Stephen, how you doing?
I'm really good. It's so good to be here.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, we are going to talk about your new book called Glad We Met, The Art and Science of One-on-One Meetings. And I'm fascinated by it because of Adam Grant described you as the world's leading expert on how to fix meetings. And I know that Cynthia and I need the help, and I'm sure the audience, thousands of people listening and watching to this, need the help. So we're going to count on you for some insight on how to do that better, because I imagine we waste. I know there's a number out there, and I know it's a massive number on how much time we waste in unproductive one-on-one meetings and team meetings.
Yeah.
But it's good to have you. You're an organizational psychologist at UNC Charlotte. You've been published over 200 times, mentioned 12,000 times in academic papers, and you've had another book we talked about on my podcast a long time ago.
Yeah.
It was great to have you back on to talk about your new book, Glad We Met, and thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh, it's so good to be here. I feel like you both do such a great job. I love how you feature the authors and help promote the science. So really big thanks to both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And one-on-one meetings terrify me sometimes. So this is I'm so very excited for this conversation. I'm in my head, I picture the inspiration coming from a terrible one-on-one meeting that kind of inspired you to write the book. But maybe that's not true. So what was the inspiration for focus?
It's actually not true in my particular case, because I work in an environment where they don't even do one-on-ones. So, universities are pretty 19th century when it comes to leading people.
You don't get any feedback? Yeah.
I have, but it doesn't really get much traction. Dysfunctional practices tend to permeate until there's really a tremendous need to change. And that typically starts with self-awareness. And we know that self-awareness is tricky for a lot of leaders. But really, what drove me to this topic was opportunity. In collecting data around one-on-ones, what was so incredible is, unlike meetings, one-on-ones are actually meetings people want. We did this global survey, and it was really clear. No matter how senior you are, you want one-on-ones. No matter how busy you are, you want one-on-ones. But the key was meaningful one-on-ones. And so, this notion of having this dedicated time where your boss takes a true and genuine interest in you, to truly see you, to understand what's on your mind. So while this one-on-one is facilitated and orchestrated by the manager, it's not for them. Instead, it's for you. And everything about it, they are constantly asking, tell me more, help me understand, how can I support? Those types of experiences with someone in power truly transform your experience on the job. And it leads to more engagement and more success.
Now we're like in a little one-on-one, but it's so your inspiration really started with first like the absence in your life of them, and then the opportunity to like improve them or call them into places they don't exist.
Yeah, I mean, it actually wasn't the fact that I didn't experience them. I didn't know. So that didn't drive me to it, because I just didn't know. But it was in pursuing some research around this. So obviously, in my other research on meetings, the more meetings people have in a day, typically the worse they feel, the less engaged, the less productive. So my work around meetings is about fixing a problem. One-on-ones present differently. One-on-ones are really an opportunity for leaders to demonstrate leadership. It's a stage for leadership, right? So we've all heard the adage that people don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad bosses. Well, one-on-ones are your opportunity to prove you're not a bad boss. Furthermore, I think, what people missed during the pandemic was not going into a physical location. What they missed was genuine connection, right? They missed feeling seen by those that matter to them. And so what really drew me hard to the topic was that this is the one meeting that should never be an email. And what also drew me to this topic is that when a leader doesn't do these things, think about the signal they're sending, right? So everything leaders do sends a signal. Everything leaders don't do also sends a signal. So when you're not willing to dedicate some amount of time to elevating the people on your team, you are demotivating them. You're disengaging them, and you're losing this incredible opportunity that is probably what people are craving at an all-time high post-COVID.
Sorry, I missed you guys. My internet just shut down. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
But for you, what's the cost? I mean, you were just talking about that a little bit, but what's the, from like your research and looking at it the way you do, what's the long-term cost of that by not giving this type of feedback and not having these types of meetings and not
right? The cost is so significant. It really is. Think about the cost of replacing your good talent. It takes a lot of time. Think about the costs associated of fixing mistakes due to lack of coordination across members of your team. Each one-on-one is an investment in your people to help them become the best performers they can be. And managers always need to remember that fundamentally, how they are evaluated by as a manager is the performance of the people that report into them. As their people excel, as the team that, as the entire team excels, this is a great reflection on you as a leader. So your success is increased when you do these one-on-ones. And then there was another interesting thing, Rhett, that was actually quite surprising to me, is that the more we conducted this research, leaders actually were reporting that when they commit to one-on-ones on a regular cadence, they actually found that they had more time. They reported, that they were less interrupted throughout a week. That basically when they had these regular meetings, employees would save the issues for their one-on-one so they could get into flow and engage in more deep work. That's wonderful. Leaders also reported that there was just less time spent fixing problems, fixing issues, because their team was much more powerful and effective and aligned.
Sorry, one quick thing, just a point. Sure. I'm writing this book on team talk and how critical it is.
Love that.
Like the internal dialogue of your team.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to speak because these findings are really interesting, right? Because it directly impacts their state of mind. It directly impacts their motivation. It directly impacts the way they treat each other. I mean, it's fascinating. It's fascinating.
Yeah. I think you're completely spot on. And so, what a leader says to the collective obviously matters, right? It's transformative, it's shaping. But what the leader says to each person individually, that's really meaningful. And so, sometimes leaders think they can save all their communication to these group team settings. And that's good, but it's not enough. That's not what people remember as much as that one-on-one. And in fact, if we all stop and reflect, like think of a time when someone in power took a genuine interest, it fundamentally shaped us.
We had an athlete. Sorry,
Go ahead.
we had this athlete that told us. He said, and he was on a Super Bowl winning football team, and he said the difference in that team, in that locker room, was that each of the coaches sat down with each of the position players individually after each game and went through the film and said, "This is where," and coached, right? And then they had the collective meetings,
right,
as a unit, right? And he said that was what made the difference. Was we got that feedback, we got it after the game, we practiced it the next week, It made us better. It made us a better unit.
Yeah.
It made us better individually, right? And I think there's something to that.
Oh, I totally agree. And I would actually say that the feedback explanation is only a very small part of the picture. I think the bigger explanation is that these players got to see that their coaches were genuinely interested in them and their success and creating relationships. Right? Relationships matter. When people are confronted with difficult challenges and problems, you persist more readily if there's a meaningful relationship at hand.
Well, they played better. They played up. It raised the level because they didn't want to disappoint each other, right? They didn't want to disappoint each other.
Love that.
Right?
Love that. You play up when you care. Like when you generally care about your manager, you play up.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really beautiful to think about, not wanting to disappoint each other in the field. So how do you structure meetings one-on-one?
Okay. So first of all, I want to tell you some good news to start this conversation, because I'm sure that you have listeners going, okay, I buy it. One-on-ones matter. They can be transformative. I remember when I had one, it was great, but I have no time. All right. So here's the good news. It's less about the minutes and more about the quality of those minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have to invest an hour a week on each person, if it's just 20 minutes, but they're good 20 minutes, all the good benefits were yielded. Even if it has to be 20 minutes every other week, as long as it's regular and predictable and there's a commitment to it and you don't cancel it. And when you have those 20 minutes, you are fully dialed in on that other person, right? Yeah. And you're listening more than you're talking. It works. So that's a really important thing to keep in mind. It's about the quality of the minutes and not the quantity of the minutes. Okay. So then, let's talk about quality minutes. And in so many ways, what you both do on this podcast is a great example of quality minutes. You are listening, right? You're not coming in this with an agenda that's personal. Your agenda is to get this information out there, to elevate the content and make it really digestible, right? That's a lovely agenda. It's not an egocentric agenda. It's a giving agenda. So when that leader is in that one-on-one and they're listening more than they're talking, that the utterances that they have are tell me more, or that has to be hard. What are your thoughts on the best way of dealing with that? How can I help? Right? How can I better support you? Those are the types of utterances that elevate the conversation and create safety and can just take it to this next level. So those facilitation behaviors are key. Next is the types of questions that you have. These meetings do need an agenda. And that actually surprised me. I didn't think they needed an agenda, but the key is it can be very lightweight. It's just a lightweight action plan that conveys some level of preparation, right? That you're not just on autopilot. There's two general ways of doing it. One is you have a set of core questions that are so big and broad that the manager asks them, but really the direct is controlling the conversation because they're just so broad. That can work really well. I once had the CEO tell me that, hey, I have the greatest question. I ask it every single one-on-one. And they told me the question. I said, wow, that really is a good question. Never ask it again. And
what was that question, by the way?
Yeah.
I can't remember. But it was this notion that think about any relationship we have. If we literally ask the exact same question, it's no longer meaningful. So we have to mix it up. So one of the things I do in my book is I provide all these various domains in which you can ask these broad-based questions so that the conversation stays fresh. Another approach is a listing approach where you ask your direct to come to the meeting with a set of topics that they would like to discuss, and then you let them tee them up. However, if you do the listing approach, what's really important is that you tell your direct, I want your topics to be things that are important to you, not me. I want your topics to be short-term, long-term. I want you to think about the job, the team, the organization, and your future. Then you get a set of meaningful topics, because otherwise people just give you what you want to hear. So you have this structure, the direct is really driving it, and that's the key theme. The direct needs to drive it. Then you're listening more than you're talking. The meeting has a proper close to it where there's this, agreement that, hey, here's what we decided and how we're going to support each other. And then you follow up and act. So it's not rocket science, but it's a very meaningful activity. And you could just imagine that when a leader does this in a predictable way, the direct really feels highly elevated. Now, I do want to, before I close and let you ask some additional questions, I want to make sure I highlight some big mistakes that happen in these. And one of the biggest mistakes is when the manager falls into the status update trap, where a manager says, hey, give me an update on this, this, and that. Because that is meeting their needs, not the employee's needs. They can get status updates in so many ways, right? They can send an email. There could be an asynchronous document. There could be a team meeting, right? They can have their needs met. Managers have the power. This is about giving the power to someone else for a short amount of time.
So this isn't an accountability update or a results update. This is different.
This is different. The whole notion, it absolutely can be a location where managers provide feedback, but the employee opens the door to it, right? So the manager says, hey, if there's any area that you'd like feedback, I'm happy to do it. Let me know, but they don't impose it. If the manager has important performance feedback to give, do it in a different context. I want to keep these things clean. I want to make these things all about the employee. It's the gift that you're giving the employee to establish this relationship. But what happens over time, Rhett, and it's so amazing, is that as you build this relationship and the trust and keeps increasing, right? Because you're demonstrating this non-egocentric dedication to your people, then employees start to ask for the feedback. And as we all know, when someone asks for feedback, it lands so much better than when it's not solicited.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I love unsolicited feedback. It's my favorite.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure we all love that from our partners in our work. Cynthia, I'm going to give you the next question because I stole the question earlier. So
please. So I would go back to the beginning of the answer when you said, don't cancel the meeting. What is the impact of having the 2-minute long meeting versus canceling?
Sure. So canceling one-on-ones was identified as one of the biggest problems. When that leader cancels the one-on-one, they are sending a signal to their people that basically almost everything else is more important than you. And so the best practice when you do have to cancel is to move it up as opposed to back, right? Because that then becomes a signal that you really genuinely do care. Even if you need to cut the time down to just 5 minutes, but you keep that constant contact. You show that you are all in on building this relationship. That becomes just a powerful moment.
That's brilliant. I never thought about moving the meeting. Sorry, just like you get these aha moments. That's great. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
So I'm really curious because, Steve, you coach and Cynthia coach. We all work with executives and people.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest problems is listening. A lot of us could always improve our listening skills. Are there any practical tips for managers to improve that so that these meetings feel genuine, feel real, right? That you trust you trust that this is
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Did I lose you? Do you hear me?
I hear you. You. I think I can finish that question because I was waiting for the. Yeah. How do you know it's working?
Sure. So this whole notion of listening, this shouldn't be that hard, but it is. I go back to there's this research that's done on why do people always forget others' names, right? So we meet someone, they introduce themselves, and then we almost immediately forget their name. Why? Well, there's a few reasons. One is that actually we don't care. We just don't care. We don't take the time to really listen. Two is that while that person is talking and introducing themselves, we're actually rehearsing what we're going to say. So therefore, what they say doesn't become encoded. So this all extends to every context. If we want to develop listening skills, it really does start with intentionality. Intentionality that I'm going to shut my mouth and truly listen, right? And that is something we actually have to commit ourselves to because it's just not natural. Humans like to talk. The more we talk, the research on brain function seems to suggest that humans talk a lot because it activates the same parts of the brain as good food and sex. So we talk a lot because it kind of feels good. So we want to give that gift to someone else. So you have that intentionality and you remind yourself before you go into that one-on-one that this is about elevating someone else and I need to really listen. And then there's a host of behavioral techniques, right? The types of utterances that help promote listening and convey listening is questions like, tell me more, help me understand. Can you say that again, but in different words? Because I want to make sure I'm fully tracking. Right. So there's all these types of active listening phrases that allow the information to keep coming out so that you fully understand it. And you're fully understanding it, not with the goal of talking or responding to it. You're fully understanding it to fully understand it as a goal in and of itself. And then the utterances, if it's relevant, are, okay, thank you for that. Is there anything I can do to help you, to aid you, to support you as you work through that? And then you keep letting the employee drive. Relatedly is this notion of when an employee has an issue or a problem, right? The best leaders say, well, how do you think we should handle that problem, right? Let's give the opportunity for someone to lean in, right? That's where there's real growth. But, and you both know this very, very well, so often what managers do is as soon as they hear the employee's idea, they immediately say, let me tell you my idea. And basically they replace the employee's idea with their own. Because the assumption is, I know better, I'm the sage. And that is highly demotivating. What a manager or what the most successful leaders do is that when they hear an employee's idea, they pick their battles, right? Not everything should be a battle. They pick their battles. So ultimately, if the employee's idea is generally in the same ballpark of your idea, let it go. Let it go. It's fine. Go with their idea. You don't know if your idea is 100% the winning hand. If there's even a big gap between their idea and your idea, but the consequences aren't severe, let it go. We don't need to intervene. Let the employee learn. And again, maybe we'll be surprised. The only time that we should intervene is when there's a meaningful, important gap. That's when we can express an alternative approach. We know how easy it is to demotivate others. And one of the surest fire ways of demotivating someone is to ask them for their input and then completely ignore it.
It's so easy to do is to think that they're asking you to save them,
Yeah.
and I've been a victim of my own thinking I need to save the day. Does who calls the meeting have an impact on the how you show up, or does it not matter?
Well, these things, one-on-ones, when a leader says, I'm going to do one-on-ones, employees are actually going to be suspicious. They're not going to trust it. They're going to assume that that's because you want to micromanage them. because that's what most leaders do. They micromanage the heck out of their people in these one-on-ones. That's what happened during COVID. So meeting activity exploded during COVID because ultimately managers were insecure. Right? They didn't know, what does it mean to be a manager when all your people are remote? I need to meet with them. I need to keep checking in. And that's why there was this massive explosion of meetings. The one-on-ones, we have to prove to employees that this is not about micromanaging. This is not about me getting all into your business. It's about me supporting and empowering you. And people won't believe that. You need to establish a track record. So you need to reboot these things if you're currently doing them, but maybe wrong, or roll them out if you aren't doing them. But when you do so, you want to attach it to your values. This is not an organizational initiative. This is actually a values-based initiative. If you survey managers about their values, almost every single person will talk about elevating others. It's pretty universal. In fact, I did this exercise where I even went to organizational mission and value statements. It's all there. So let's tie this initiative as an expression of your values. I want to do these one-on-ones because I value you and I want to see you succeed. And I'm willing to invest my time and energy to do my part in that. So we frame this in a values-based way. We roll this out. We keep checking ourselves that we're doing more listening than talking. We're actively facilitating. We're keeping our commitments. We're being appropriately vulnerable at times because, yes, if we want others to be vulnerable, we have to be willing to be appropriately vulnerable too. So we're creating this safe space. Then we're checking in with our people periodically every few months to see, hey, is this working for you? Because this is a meeting for you, not me. So is this working for you? What should we do differently? Then over time, people will believe you that this actually is a dedicated effort to elevate your people. And then they'll be more real and candid in the types of issues that they broach.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I hate it that we were at the mark, but what's the big takeaway? Like, we want people to go out and buy the book.
Yeah.
If you're a manager or a leader
Sure.
of people, tell us where they can get it. But what is the big takeaway? What do they need? Why do they need this, and why do they need it now?
Thank you. So first of all, I'm so committed to getting these ideas out. Every single penny that I make from my royalties is all going to American Cancer Society. I don't make a penny off this. So I hope that people will buy the book if they want to learn about one-on-ones, or buy the book if they want to help eradicate cancer. Both are fabulous. But I just want to get these ideas out. So the big takeaway is that one-on-ones are this genuine opportunity to bring humanity into the workplace. And by doing so, it is really good business. How often can we say that bringing humanity in is truly good business? And in this case, it is. Those managers that have regular one-on-ones with their people, employees reported 3 times higher levels of engagement compared to others. Then there's research that clearly demonstrates that employees were more productive, and that teams were able to achieve their goals more readily when managers had these regular one-on-ones. These one-on-ones, like I described, are really, really, really good for business. They're good for the manager, and I know this will resonate with you, Red, in particular. Cynthia, I just met you, so probably resonate with you too. One of the best predictors of life satisfaction is the helping of others. It's one of the most robust determinants. One-on-ones are this opportunity to elevate and help others, and by doing so, fill your cup and lead you to have this great sense of satisfaction. Okay, so that's the call to action.
That's a massive ROI, right? And it seemed to me that could be your X factor in what and how you are successful. I mean, this little thing can make all the difference between a good team or an okay team and a team that you can challenge and do anything you want to do with.
It's I mean, what you just described, I personally find it compelling, and it lines up with the research perfectly. And then to your other point about how do folks get a hold of me, I have a very large LinkedIn presence, so that's certainly a great way. But I've really tried to make my website into this really deep repository of information. So if people could visit StephenRogelberg.com, I'm sure it'll be in the show notes, but StephenRogelberg.com. I have my email address on there because I'm really passionate around this stuff, and I'm very happy to answer any questions that folks have. So I hope people will check it out and really embody this notion that there is in one meeting out there that should never be an email, and this is what it is.
Love it. Well, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Cynthia, you want to take us out?
Yes, thank you for joining another episode of Bestseller Live. We are going to be back next week with another book.